Welcome back to the serious business of pleasure and play, finding your power, passion, and joy to ignite your life and livelihood through creative and embodied practices. I'm your host, Aria Skydancer, and today we are once again diving into the topic of embodied practices, what they are, why they are so powerful and healing, and how the pleasure and play that often arise in embodied practices are key to awakening our sense of deep aliveness, joy, connection, and resilience, as well as the power to create the lives we desire. Today, I'm honored to be talking with Allison Pagano. Allison has woven her love of dance, performance, the healing arts into a body of work that bridges movement, somatics, and energy medicine. She's the creator of Embodied Dance, a modality bridging somatic healing, movement, leadership, and human potential. Her work integrates neuroscience, somatic psychology, body language intelligence, spirituality, and embodied transformation to support people in accessing the body as a pathway to healing, truth, creativity, and self leadership. Hi,
Mhm.
Allison. It's such a joy and honor to be talking with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Aria. Likewise, very
Mhm.
happy to be here.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what brought you to your work?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's been a body of work in the making. I didn't start out on a path thinking I wanted to do embodiment or knowing what that even was at an early age. I think this path has really carved itself in some ways based on a lot of curiosities that were present on how people's relationship with dance and their own body could be different than a lot of what I experienced as a young person in a dance class, as well as fed by a curiosity around how people truly heal. And those two questions have driven me to seek different mentors, seek different ways of learning, and seek also mostly my own practice where I could really address some of these questions and try them out with other people over time. So, what I've carved out over these last 25 years has really been built on these different curiosities and how they seem to not only answer the questions, but really help people.
Mm,
So, it's been both humbling and very freeing to be in these questions and to have more or less surrendered my life to this path when people didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it. And, a lot of people in the dance world think I should do it like this or that I should, so there's all these different inputs. And I want to say my saving grace in holding what I have and the reason why I like to help others also in their own work is it takes a tremendous amount of courage to just stay anchored in your own questions, your own soul, and to listen to that above the outside noise, which is a lot of what I help people do.
mm,
So I know I touched into a couple of different points there. So I lead a global dance teacher training um, called the Embodied Dance Teacher Certification. And at this point, that is the main way that I work with people. I really support them into connecting to their body in a way that they most likely didn't experience in traditional dance training, and also to provide the healing foundations that I felt were missing in a lot of what I experienced. So the work itself is really about the whole person and supporting the whole person more or less to self-actualize through these movement practices to learn how to stand in their truth
mm,
in their self-acceptance. And for those people who work with me, it's about really building and sharing a body of work that speaks to their unique imprint, their unique experiences, and how they want to bring their gifts forward.
mm, mm. That's beautiful. I find it so fascinating. I come from I come from the conscious movement world,
Mm,
and I never got the traditional dance training. I started doing conscious movement in my late 20s.
Hmm.
And I just find it so fascinating that you actually come from the world of dance. What would you call that? Traditional dance training? What would you call that?
Yeah, I'd say,
Classical.
traditional dance training technique,
Yeah.
performance-based dance. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have come to a lot of the same, um, well, using the body as a doorway for healing,
Hmm.
for getting in contact with your deep authenticity, your
Hmm.
power, um,
Hmm.
maybe the body as your guide and your compass.
Hmm.
And I just find that so fascinating that you, and I feel like you're like a trailblazer. Like I haven't seen,
Hmm.
I personally have not seen anyone doing what you're doing,
Hmm.
who have come from that kind of a background. Can you speak to
Yeah.
how did you do that? How did you?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking. And I deeply, it's very, it's interesting to, meet on the same road. And I want to, say also that I didn't intend to, or nor do I even in my own practice, like throw away like a lot of the beauty of what it is to work with structured movement, because I also work with structured movement. And I think that there's a very intentional reason for that, not only in the traditional dance world, but also a lot of indigenous cultures work with choreography. They work with intentional movement that is created in a certain way that can be replicated, that can be joined into. So, I always kind of teeter-tottered on the uh, of being in both worlds, really, because I understood the value of both. And I just want them to kind of talk to each other more. And
Yes.
not be so separate. Like, okay, there's this authentic movement thing that's over here, or this conscious dance thing, and then there's traditional dance. And it's like, well, how do we actually bring the best of what both has the potential for and
Hmm.
use it instead of both, and honestly, everything is going to have its limitation in a certain regard, but yeah, how do we blend those two things together has been my curiosity. And it really started, and I've told this story a lot of times, but I'll touch on it briefly. It was when I was here back in the late 90s studying cultural anthropology. I had an indigenous woman who was a teacher, and I was going through a massive eating disorder. And she was leading us through a class called Spiritual Well-Being, which in the late 90s was like, you're going to take
Yeah.
a class like that? What do you mean? What does that mean? I was 20 years old. Yeah. So ultimately, she had us really asking a lot of questions in our own practices. She was teaching us transcendental meditation, teaching us about chakra systems, and she was a powerhouse of a woman. And I deeply respected her and felt very held and safe. And she created the opportunity for us to really explore what our concept of the divine, or what our connection to source, whatever you want to call it, would be, God. Um, and through her creating the space for that, which looked like us presenting, this 20-minute thing for the class based on what we thought that was, which is incredibly intimidating at that age and probably at any age.
Mm.
Um, but because I was in this eating disorder and I was coming to this place where I just didn't want to hate my body and hate life anymore, and I couldn't figure out like what is wrong and what's happening here. So it was really through what I learned in that class that I could start touching into. I think I can. I'm touching little threads of. I think I can figure this out. I think I'm not doomed to just be like a stranger in my body and completely shut down every day. I don't think this is what life is supposed to be. So I really used that opportunity to get in the dance studio myself and meet with those places and give them a voice and really sit with the things that were uncomfortable and sit with the things that I felt ashamed about and I felt sad about or rageful about or misunderstood or whatever those different things were. I just let them be. And I gave myself permission to hold them and move with them and see what was there and see if there was something I could unwind and perhaps unlock. that would give me maybe a little glimpse of a doorway out.
Wow.
I didn't think at the time that, I didn't know what was possible. I didn't have anything to compare it to. I didn't know anybody who had done anything like that. I was just
Yeah.
learning about all this stuff for the first time. But as I went through that process and really meeting myself and finding the self-acceptance and safety within, things started really changing for me. And by the end of the semester, after I had shown this big thing, this like half choreographed, half improvised thing that, kind of brought me to my knees literally in many ways,
Mm.
um, there was something that just integrated more, where I felt like I could start learning how to eat again and nourish myself. And it was a big shift for me. And in that moment, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to create a big movement around embodied dance. It was like, okay, I just went back to living. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so it started really through that channel. And then I spent the 20, whatever it was, years after that, drawing pieces in, studying things I was really curious about. Insight energy medicine, body language. I did body work for years as a therapist. I did coaching. I kind of had, I was teaching yoga. I had all of these different pieces that were informing me, informing each other. So I just started to really put together what I thought was, um, yeah, a vernacular of a method in some way that could really help someone.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. That's really fascinating. And what I love about that is, um, although you have so much training, you have so much training in dance, and then all of these other modalities that you're weaving in that that you studied. But it sounds like the most powerful piece, at least from over here, is your very real, like organic, um, kind of uh, deep understanding that came from a real experience, a really deeply lived um, aha, like wow, like uh, you know, deep insight into the how your body can be such a profound healer for you
Mm.
that and I just love that, like that's always there for you, it's always there. And it sounds like you really like, because you had that experience, you have this deep understanding that you maybe is a foundational piece of what you do for other women.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful reflection. I really appreciate that. And I know you really hear it and see it in your own experience from all that you do and
Mm.
all that you touch into. And it's almost like the body, there's something about it's so deeply connected, I believe, in our, and I'm not going to have the perfect language for this because this is, I'm still on the path really understanding it myself. But there's something about being curious enough to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's almost like I would say the body and whatever you consider source or God to be, it's like when you're reaching for the body or you're reaching for source or God, it's reaching for you.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I
there's
love
something
that.
about that, yeah, that it's like waiting for us to just open and listen.
Yeah.
And because of the conditioning and so many other things that we get used to and call normal on this planet, most of us are shut down in that way. We don't even know it. I would have been shut down if I wasn't curious enough to figure out, that whole thing at that time. And I think that that's a big part of what I'm standing for right now and what I'm seeing happen in the world and what I'm seeing us being silently and not so silently ushered into and
Hmm.
really taking a stand for mostly women, but pretty much anyone who is wanting a deeper relationship with their body so that they can hold their own in the world, really know who they are and walk through the world without fear, trusting their inner gnosis, trusting um, that the answers they have, they can cultivate
Right.
within and with, relationship to these different aspects, that they don't have to lock down and wait for somebody to tell them what to do, which
Yeah.
is mostly what's happening, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, of course. that
Yes.
going to that automatic going to the external to find knowledge and our truth, to the external instead of what's in here. And
Mm.
also, and as you pointed to, it's getting more and more, it's just, with AI and tech. Um,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that thing that the way that you said, whenever you, how did you say it? Whenever you move towards source or God, your body, it moves towards
It's
you.
reaching for you too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
reaching for you too. And I think one of the things that I kind of fear, or maybe I'm witnessing, is that we are forgetting to ask those questions, forgetting to seek from those places, Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, even just the simplicity of how am I feeling how am I feeling? What is my desire? What do I want?
Right.
Being led and being curious with our actual bodies.
Right. Well, that's why, not to sound overly dramatic, but these things, these phones, right, and these devices, these 24/7 distraction devices are, in a certain way, our greatest downfall. Like, it's a beautiful thing because you and I can connect and we're
Right.
across the globe. And I love my global community and I love being able to connect with, information or people that I normally wouldn't come across being in one spot.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're being so, I will say, siphoned from energetically, attention-wise,
Yeah.
that you would almost not even know what you feel or could
Yeah.
even touch into it. And I think that that was going on even long before these phones existed, right? Before
Yeah.
these devices existed. Like it was very easy to be disconnected from ourselves, but
Yeah.
they enable it to a whole other level,
It's a whole nother level.
a
Yeah.
whole other level.
I mean,
Yeah.
we all started to experience that, like especially in kindergarten, right? We go into school and we're supposed to we're not supposed to listen to our own creative voices and our own biological impulses. Stay at your desk, be quiet, stand in line, all that. But yeah, it's
And
a whole
the
other.
shutdown slowly begins.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had this one spiritual teacher I remember, years ago when I lived in Hawaii, and he said most people die when they're 5 or 6, and then it just takes another
Oh,
like 50 or 70 years before their body falls
oh
over.
my
And I was like, oh
God.
my God,
That makes me.
that's so intense and so true.
Whoa. I know. It is so true. I mean, I see the spark and the joy and the, moving in their environments in novel ways. These small kids that are they're so alive, right? They're so
Mm,
alive. And I wish that, well, I guess I can say that your work and my work and, embodied practices hopefully lead us a bit back into that territory of like, whoa, what can I actually create here? What can I do? A sense of
mm,
aliveness and joy.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that so beautifully. And I'm with you in standing for the children as well.
Yeah.
Um, And I feel that, in terms of touching into like, how does this process even start? I would say 3 words: willingness to feel.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
thing that we, what ends up happening as children is automatically, and I want to say it's not usually the teachers. I think a lot of the teachers have good intentions, but
Yeah.
it's something about where we start trading the heart coherence and our sense of our own field and what we can pick up as information, and we start trading that for logic,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
what you can scientifically look at and prove in a book, versus what we can feel and what we can sense and what we already tapped into and what it is that we know without question. We start getting told to stop listening to that, and from a variety of people and variety of ways. So the essential part of this work is, I'm going to say, the willingness, and I'll also add in the courage to feel. Because when we haven't been feeling,
Mhm.
for decades.
Mhm.
There's fear around what will I touch if I actually turn the mind down a couple notches.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a lot in that soup, right?
exactly. The fear of the feelings is almost what we need to get past before we can even feel our feelings,
Right.
this fear of feeling because it's unknown, right? It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
um,
and it takes the willingness to be a little uncomfortable with the unknown because you're
right,
stepping through the unknown. When you step into the relationship with the body, with God, with Source in terms of that containment, you're being led. It requires a bit of surrender, and you're not entirely, having your mind in control.
right.
And the thing that I'll say that's really beautiful about it that I've seen is that because the way the nervous system works, I've only really experienced the way that I do my method, particularly. I'm sure there's lots of people's ways that are not gentle, but it's really
Right.
about what's meeting what's present. And when
Mhm.
we meet what's present, it's not usually going to, pull up from the well the deepest, darkest thing that you could possibly imagine. It's just asking you to notice, like, what's here right now as a
Mhm.
practice?
Mhm. Yeah,
What's the expression of that?
not
What's the
this,
truth of that?
it's not like this cathartic practice that like yanks it out
Well,
of
that you
you.
need, yeah, the cathartic practice that you need, then, trauma therapy for.
Yeah,
So it's like, I
exactly.
don't, and there's a time and a place for that for people who want that. And
Yeah.
that's not the way that I work. And it's not because I poo-poo it, but it's
Hmm.
just not the way that I was shown in
Yeah.
my own. When I get curious about these things, and I'm not saying that I know everything or that I'm right, but my own practice has led me in a way that feels very safe. And the way that I've seen it tested out with hundreds of people is that it doesn't ever bring somebody to a trauma, but it brings them to truth.
Oh,
And
that's
the
so
truth is enough to begin unlocking those places of
yeah.
emotion,
Yeah.
of connection, of safety.
Yes. Yeah, I've often thought that being in our bodies in movement gives us a certain container or a groundedness, and I think there's a natural titration that happens when
Mm,
we're in our bodies with our sensations, and moving from that place. I feel like there's a natural titration, so we kind of it's kind of a safety there. It's like a safety net. Like we're not going to go too far beyond um, what is safe for our nervous systems in the moment. At least that's what I've experienced in my day.
exactly. Yeah, you named it really well.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've had a lot of experiences with that personally, where you've, I'm assuming, really learned to trust what was happening in the
Yeah.
moment and deeply
Yeah.
surrendered to it. Yeah.
Yes, I have. It reminds me of what you said. You've said the body never lies. The body never lies. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that. The body never lies, and this
Mm,
truth that you were talking about, this truth that we access in our bodies. And maybe you can speak a little bit more about your method, like your
yeah.
methodology in regards to the body never lies, and accessing our truth, our authenticity, or being led by our body, whatever it is that you want to speak to.
Yeah, thank you. The embodied dance method is very heavily influenced by my studies in body language. And I had, some teachings that I have followed and practiced that have brought to me a lot of insight that I also share inside this work. Um, the person whose body of work, he's not that well known, but super profound. His name was Patrick Collard. He passed away in about 2009 or so. But two of his apprentices were dear girlfriends of mine, and I really, got a lot of information working with them and connecting and studying with them. And um, with the body language work, it's fascinating how when you just sit back and you become a gentle observer, even of yourself, you'll notice that the body is always gesturing or moving in a certain way, depending on what's happening in the mental and emotional body. And what made this body of work that I studied different is that it was really about unifying the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. So the work that we were trained to do was really on the table with people and asking a lot of different questions and noticing where their body was responding. Um, and giving them space to have a physical, mental, emotional release or realignment.
Mm.
And what happens in that way, and according to neuroscience, is that then you have new neural pathways reconnecting. So old habitual patterns, old ways of always doing something, you have a capacity for a shift when you bring the mental understanding, the emotional holding, and the physical release to it. But the physical release to it for me became dance. So it
Mm.
was about taking people off the table and getting them moving.
Yeah.
And getting curious about, because I did hands-on healing for decades and, energy medicine and movement, what I want to call multidimensional healing, which I still do.
Mm.
And it was like, well, how do I get movement to do this? How do I get movement to do what I'm doing when somebody is laying on the table and I'm working on them? And that's really how a lot of these modalities were born in a certain capacity, which
Wow.
was looking at people's body language, what are certain belief systems, uncovering our belief systems,
Yeah.
which is a fascinating thing to realize because we think the same thoughts all the time, myself included, because we have a subconscious mind that just puts it on repeat. But becoming aware of these belief systems. And when we become aware of these belief systems, we understand what the relationship is in the body and how it's being held. And
Yeah.
it's going to be different for every person. So, last thing I'll say about that for now, and then we can see, um, is that, I learned inside this work that every person has a negative core belief about themselves. So it's something about themselves that they wish really weren't true. And everybody has them because
Mm.
it's just what happens when we have a subconscious mind who's trying to keep us safe. Something happens early on in life, and we decide we're not good enough.
Right.
We're not enough. We're
Right.
not wanted. We're bad. Um, Perhaps other people can have things that they want, but I can't. But there's some subliminal thing that's just dancing around, and Patrick would say that we spend our whole life gathering evidence to support that that's
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
So every time something happens, we say, "Oh, this is just another thing showing me that I'm not enough."
Yes.
And we kind of feed it with all of these life experiences. So a lot of what I do inside the embodied dance method is meeting those places and not from a place of shame or judgment, but just out of genuine curiosity of like, well, God, what am I really holding back here? Because inside of that, on the other, once you get through it, is where all your power is where all your aliveness is where all of what you came here to really do
Yeah.
is. So
Yeah.
that's why we do it. We don't go to go, oh, well, we're bad and we should, you know, investigate these things and be hard on ourselves. It's the opposite. It's like, where am I not free?
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, how do we use movement to uncover and then reclaim? So
Yeah.
the process itself has two main parts to it, really, which is I call the release and the reclamation. The release is once we've identified what the story is, what we're holding about it, where it is in the body, how it's, operating, and we give it a full voice and expression. And I have a lot of different prompts and ways that we get in there to really find the crux or the truth of it. Once that has been met and seen and witnessed and held, I like the phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. So we want to fill that space, right? So it's then now you've allowed that. So what would you choose? Because you can't make the choice until you've allowed that to be really met. And I will say that sometimes even my teacher training students, they want to go right to the choice and they don't want to feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want to
Of
feel. And I,
course,
I
right?
totally understand. They don't want to meet. I don't want to meet that part of myself
Yeah.
that thinks that
Yeah.
and feel it. But when we do, that's when you kind of get a sense of like, this is my core essence. I actually know who I am now. I actually can touch something before that was being,
Yes.
hidden behind this
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And because we can't get rid of our subconscious, we can't get rid of our ego. Its job is to keep us safe. We just learn how to work with it, and we learn how to identify when we're being drawn into those places and catch it and lovingly say, "Thank you, body, for showing me that I'm holding this right now. Okay, maybe there's some other way."
Yeah. I love that so much. And I can just see the passion you have for this work. I love that. Um, yeah, so we have to be present to what it is that, these beliefs, these things that are kind of unconsciously running the program, kind of running our life, telling us what we can be and do and have and express and all of
Hmm.
that stuff. That makes so much sense to me that we would first need to become very intimate with that, and really just to like be real about who we are and like what we're, how we're where we're operating from, and
Hmm.
then also maybe develop a deep sense of compassion for that, and
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
understanding like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Of
Hmm.
course I have that. And
Yeah.
also I like to think of these kind of things that are lurking in the shadows. I like to think of them as treasure that's being guarded by a dragon.
Yes.
It's like they're but it's really treasure. It's like we're afraid of them, but really that is where we will find our deepest desires and our power, right? That's where our
Hmm.
power is, right there
Absolutely.
alongside those things.
Absolutely. And it's thank you for you just shared all of that. Yeah. So lovely. I totally resonate with everything that you just said. Um, and the thing is, if we can't touch one emotion, we can't really touch any of them. So it's sort of
Mm,
like,
mm,
it takes that willingness to just go, okay,
yeah,
your aliveness is going to be at like a level 1, 2. If you're not even going to, you can't touch the joy if you can't touch the sadness. You
right.
can't touch the power if you can't touch the rage, right? So they're all intertwined.
Yeah.
And what this does so beautifully that I love and why I think it's so important right now is it's a natural empathy builder, a
Mm,
compassion
mhm.
builder,
Yeah,
right? Compassion and empathy, because when we meet those tender parts within, our capacity to see humanity for what it is and to hold people in that same um, compassion, it just grows exponentially. I
yeah,
want to say that that's probably the prerequisite I think that I've noticed anyway, is like,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Like we have to be willing to touch into, um, the pain that's involved in being a human being. Uh,
absolutely. And the lineage of what was never touched, I call us like we're the healing generation. We're the first ones that are not
mm,
typically in fight or flight the way our parents had to be or our
right.
grandparents, like
Yeah.
they were just trying to get
Mm,
through something. And we're the first generation, most of us,
yeah.
um, who, our basic needs are okay and we're asking other questions.
Right.
So but we have a different job, right? They had the harder job of like getting physically safe and stable.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at all the inherited trauma.
Yeah.
A whole other animal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the courage it takes to simply start to just look, like you said, just to look. And there's so much that happens simply in the simple act of witnessing, right?
Mm.
And I would think that when people I wish I could be a fly on the wall when you're working with people, really. I wish I could watch your
Mm.
process, but I'm imagining that there's all kinds of ways that people are embodying these shadows or beliefs or whatever outdated beliefs, limiting beliefs, whatever it is you want to call them.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I would think that, you said nature abhors a vacuum. And so then we get to choose kind of what we want to replace it with. But I would imagine that sometimes it's such an organic process. Like once once you meet those and you're just willing to really be with on,
Mm,
on an embodied level, I would guess that some of that is just revealed. Like it's just the thing that wants to replace it or whatever. It feels
mhm.
like it might be just revealed. Like, oh, actually, I have this beautiful, sparkly, innocent child in me that wants to play, or
Right.
whatever it is.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And yeah, it's a very organic process in that way. And I think also I've seen a lot of, and again, not to uh, make wrong in some way, but I've seen a lot of like therapeutic processes just stop at that first level.
Yeah. Yeah,
And they
just
just go,
just
okay,
get in touch with the pain
that's
and
it. But then I
yeah.
feel like for me or other people, the way that I have seen it, it's just like you're just kind of leaving them flying in the ethers.
Yes.
And it's like I just feel like that's almost necessary is to ground back into a different kind of holding. And it's like, well, you've just let go of like one kind of holding. So you almost need to bring some other kind of holding in. You just can't kind of let them, I mean, maybe you can, but that's not the way that I see, if you want to walk through the world in a way feeling grounded and safe, like you
Yeah.
got to bring in another kind of holding that you feel you can really trust and learn how to trust. But it's almost like you can't trust that other holding until or unless
Yeah.
that first placeholder, I'll say, of whatever that thing that is, that's that belief system, um, until it's being met.
Yeah.
That's why affirmations don't work, in my opinion. You just can't like affirm something away and just not feel it. It's like, okay, being willing to feel
Yeah.
what's actually there. Then you can get a lot more honest because there's always going to be a part of you that goes, that's not true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would think that the the embodied and creative aspect of what you bring, um, it it does. I can really feel it. Like it gives it gives you something else to like. What am I trying to say? I've done a lot of therapy that isn't embodied.
Mm,
It, doesn't entail embodied practices. And I understand what you mean. Like, okay, we can, really touch into a lot of trauma and, deep sadness and grief and all kinds of stuff. But if you don't, you know, I've walked out of appointments where it's like, well, I seriously do not know who I am and what to do in this moment. So
yeah.
it's like you need to tap into another part of your intelligence, another part, like, okay, now what? What, what wants to happen now? What wants
Mm.
to be created now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see that for you. I can sense that as you shared it and get the feeling of like, okay, what is it that I do? And yeah, having similar experiences in different ways. And like, doesn't work.
Yeah.
This isn't helpful entirely. It's a little helpful, but it's not entirely helpful. And again, I'm not saying that, I've figured out the golden key, but yeah, it's really just, that's what I've noticed.
I love it. It's so
Mm.
beautiful.
Mm.
So we don't have much time left. So how about in the next couple of minutes that we have, you can tell us more about your training. You said that's the main thing that you do right now, right? The training.
Mm.
So what is it you want to tell us about your training? What do you want to share about your training?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I really love this and very just happy to be part of all that you're doing here. So yeah, with the training, I'm offering it live twice a year. I'm working with people in person where I live in Australia, and I'm also working online with people Europe and the US. And I have two phases that I walk people through. The first phase of the teacher training is all about connecting back to that wisdom. It's all about finding our own sense of what embodiment means for us. How do we hold ourselves? And we go through all the different methods that I teach. And I'm not just teaching them my methods, I'm actually bringing them through quite a profound healing process
Mhm.
on the way. So it's kind of a triple fold where teaching them my methods, they're going through their own healing process, and they're also learning how to stand inside their leadership and really hold the space of leadership. Um, so that's the phase one. And then the phase two is all about how do you turn this into a business and actually make a life and living from it? Because these were the questions I didn't have when I graduated with my master's degree and I had written all about embodied dance. And I had no idea how to talk to people about what I did. I mean, I knew the academic language for it, but that wasn't helpful.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, I had to figure out, like, okay, how do I actually find the people who are looking for what I do and create offerings that feel good to my nervous system and feel like, this is something I want to sustain, not because I'm, following this, bro marketing thing that somebody told me
Yeah.
works. But how am I still being in relationship with my body and leadership while doing the business thing?
Mm. Oh,
Because
that's
I
wonderful.
did not like the idea of business or marketing, and you better believe that I hid and ran from it for about 15 years.
Yeah, I can relate.
So so
So
then there's
you
a whole
bring in,
other phase around how we, show up in the world. It's one thing to own it and name it and bring it in, but then how do we share it in a way that's honoring of our own unique ways? Because it's going to look different for everyone.
I love that. So you use the embodied wisdom that
Mm,
that you cultivate in this training, in the practices and in the training, also to in the marketing and the business part of
hmm.
it. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I found just, following, just like in the dance world, for me, it was like following other people's approaches doesn't work for me,
Right.
and I can't be the only one. So I really feel that my best quality is teach a man to fish,
Yeah, yeah.
and really support them to know how to work with themselves in their own way, to be the great, mirror for what they're holding and to give them the support to see what they can't see in terms of their gifts, in terms of um, what's really possible for them. I think that's a really important thing in terms of having a mentor that I didn't have initially, that I found at one point, was having somebody that had a bigger vision than me.
Mm,
Because given my background or given my history, I would have always chosen to stay small and let somebody else
mm,
go. That was
mm.
just my belief system and the way that I
Yeah.
worked. So, how do I be a person that holds a big vision for someone as they grow into it? Because I think that that's the key of a great mentor,
I
or at
love it
least in my
so
opinion.
much. It sounds like you are seeing each of your students and in the uniqueness that they are, and you're helping them develop their work based on their own unique wisdom. And I love that. And you're seeing the possibilities and kind of reflecting that back to them. I
Mm.
love that. And are you, so I'm imagining that each person who joins your training has a different modality that they are
Completely different,
wanting
so
to teach.
different.
Oh, I
I'm
love
working
that.
right now with about 13 different women, and they have completely different backgrounds,
That's amazing.
completely different,
That's amazing.
um, you know, life experience. I mean, they're from all different corners of the world where they just coming in with all, and I love that. That's my anthropologist in me loves bringing together different kinds of people. Um, so yeah, they're from everywhere, and they all have a different drive of why they're there and what it is that they want to create. And ultimately, we're unified by the thread of embodied wisdom. And I think there's so much more potential for growth in containers where not everybody's like you, but you see the brilliance in each person.
Yes.
And you see like, oh, wow, this person's really got something here, and that's so different, and it's amazing. So I love that because it's a mystery to me. I never know exactly how it's all going to unfold because I'm in collaboration with them. I'm leading, but I'm also deeply listening. It's not about Allison knows it all. It's not at all. The embodied dance process is not about anybody knowing anything. It's really about that relationship and listening.
Oh, I love it.
So the mystery of the unfoldment is what I really live for inside of this work. Yeah.
That your work it just strikes me as being so unique and powerful and alive. Like what is alive right now? Like listening to what is alive right now, and responding to that.
Mhm.
That I love it. I'm so impressed and I'm fascinated and
Mhm.
I'm so grateful that you came to share your work with us today.
Thank you so much, Aria. It's been so lovely to just have a connection to you and all that you're creating. And I'm also very honored just to be here
Hmm.
and support this greater mission that you have. So thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to finally sit down with you after following your work and just like drooling over your work for like so many years.
Mm.
It's really nice to be able to sit down and actually speak with you.
Thank you so much. Very, very humbling to hear. Yeah,
Oh,
I very much appreciate you.
it's true. Okay, thank you.